how I first encountered the work of Pier Paolo Calzolari was not in person. It was through visuals from books and from being aware of the arte povera movement as an important movement in contemporary art and influencing a lot of artists. And one of my younger artists had been talking to me about the work of Pier Paolo and had been an art handler at the Walker Art Center at the time when Richard Flood had been doing his shows there of arte povera. And he had installed works by Pier Paolo and was telling me about how they changed his view of art, changed his life, propelled him into wanting to go to graduate school for sculpture, and he ended up going to Yale, and he's now one of the gallery artists. But because of his deep interest in the work, I got interested, and I was already very interested in the Italians from post-war forward and their influence on so much that came after. And at first I had trouble finding the work of Pier Paolo because he hadn't shown in America. The last time was in 1988, so it was not something that was easily accessible. There weren't a lot of books that had English text, and I don't speak Italian. I'm going to learn one day. But so I had to really do some physical research, and I spent time in Italy, and I went. I was curious enough to go, and I went to Parma, and I went to Milano, and I went and saw some works of people that had them, and found through a friend in Parma a way to contact Pier Paolo. So we started writing to each other. And about a year later, he allowed me to come to the studio for the first time, which is now the Foundation. Totally different experience as a foundation than as the studio, being a working studio at the time, which is maybe now 8 years ago, 2010 maybe, 7 years ago. So that was the beginning of our dialogue and our relationship. And then the first time I got to see a real major installation was at Capesaro in Venice. So that was 2010, I believe. We should check the date. But the museum there had installed many major works, and for me to be able to see them in person, I had the studio experience and then the museum experience, and it's, you know, sublime. My impression of this now as a foundation instead of the working studio is very different and very the same. So you have the same soul of Pier Paolo in these spaces and the same air and breath around the work where you can really experience things through space and light. But it's definitely more formal. So before you could come through and there were things half built coming out of crates being restored, and there was a sense of a beehive of activity happening. And now it's a very quiet experience of walking through these incredible spaces and just getting to be with the art, and you don't have that sense of activity around. It's a quiet experience, and you get to see the range over time of the use of materials and text and the repetition of ideas and the investigations that he goes deep and deep, that start, and when you think about the performance works and how we have, the flame work right here, it's from '79, but he was doing performance work all the way back. To be able to walk into the foundation and see something activated like that you can only otherwise see in books from history is a really incredible experience. I love Pier Paolo's work for so many reasons, and each piece for so many different reasons. I'm standing in front of this piece, and in a way it's kind of a perfect combination of so many things that Pier Paolo is interested in. Not just the materials, but you've got the lead and the copper and the bronze, and you have the teapot, the frost, the burned wood, and then you have the movement of the water. So it captures a lot of, even the sense of domesticity and warmth and comfort that he's seeking in his work in terms of atmosphere. And then I love the way he makes the still life be a physical experience instead of flat. So for me, it reminds me of a Marianne, but you have to walk all the way through. So to be able to experience every part. For me, I spend so much time thinking about Pier Paolo's work and looking at Pier Paolo's work that to be able to come here, and I come to Fossombrone probably once a year, maybe more. Now that it's a foundation, it'll depend on how often the works are changing. But it's an opportunity to sit with work and spend time with it that each time I find it's a long discovery. Every piece of Pier Paolo's, you discover new things. I mean, there's a piece there that looks like burned black salt, but it has red pigment in it. There's a slow reveal to his work that's meant to slow you down. And when I see Pier Paolo's work in Fossombrone, the experience of getting here, being here, and everything in the surroundings, the speed of the experience is completely different than in a museum or in New York or in any other city. So to come to Fossombrone it's a different experience, and you experience art in a very different way.
Degli oggetti casalinghi, degli oggetti non regali, degli oggetti quotidiani, degli oggetti domestici, il fuoco, il ghiaccio, il colore, ma in realtà l'elemento principale della pittura è la luce. E questo probabilmente è vero in modo particolare per la pittura italiana, per la storia della pittura italiana. Pensiamo al rapporto tra pittura fiorentina e pittura veneta, la pittura del segno e la pittura della luce e del colore. Nello stesso tempo io immagino che un artista come Pier Paolo Calzolari non si possa e non si debba definire, proprio pensando alla sua opera pittorica, un artista contemporaneo. Io non credo che Pier Paolo Calzolari possa essere veramente ben capito solo se lo esponiamo nei white cube dei musei contemporanei. È una pittura che sembra farsi viva proprio come se si stesse dipingendo, non c'è l'artista che la dipinge, ma è come se si stesse dipingendo, si stesse completando con degli elementi propriamente performativi come il fuoco o il ghiaccio, ma anche con le nostre reminiscenze della storia della pittura, con la nostra familiarità con i materiali, nella relazione d'incanto, di ricerca, di sospensione con il colore. Un colore blu come quello alle mie spalle, che ricorda il blu nella storia dell'arte. E che cos'è il blu in un dipinto? Pier Paolo Calzolari ci riconcilia con un'idea forse molto italiana, forse molto europea di arte, come qualcosa che non vive nel tempo della cronaca in cui è realizzata e forse anche non si può godere appieno nel momento della storia dei formati espositivi in cui l'opera è realizzata, il museo contemporaneo, la sua parete bianca, le nostre retoriche, i nostri comportamenti, ma forse dovremmo immaginarci una mostra di Pier Paolo Calzolari fra 500 anni e forse sarà magari in uno straordinario colloquio con arte che era stata prodotta secoli e secoli prima, e questo colloquio sarà splendidamente pieno di senso, pieno di significato.
I studied art history in Florence in the early 90s with Esther Cohen, and we made some kind of field trips as well to shows in Torino or in Rome, but we very often went to the Fondazione Benchley, and they have a very large collection of arte povera. And I must say, I'm not sure, but I think I saw a one-man show of Pier Paolo there, and for me it was a whole new world. I mean, I heard about arte povera before. I was rather familiar with Joseph Beuys or with Anselm Kiefer in terms of raw material used in painting or sculpture, and I was really impressed by the directness and by the immediate effect that these works had on me as a young art historian. It's extremely impressive to see so many works of Pier Paolo Calzolari here in this place, or in these three huge well, showrooms, and it's impressive more to see that, which is not always the case, and which really it's unique here, to see so many important early pieces and historic pieces of Pier Paolo in this display. Well, there are many things that will remind in my mind, in my head, and but it's especially, I think, is it this enormous impact the works still have. I mean, they are 30, 40 years old. I mean, they really are. They're historic pieces, but still they have a unique impact as well as everyday materials, object things, as well as in their way of transcend these kind of rawness, and to transform it into something very very special and unique. I wouldn't say there is a particular piece of work. As I said, I mean, the early pieces, historic works, are really impressive, and I was really stunned to have so many of them here in those three showrooms. Another thing that really impressed me very much, and it's very telling about the early success and the dynamics that this artist must have had in the late 60s, early 70s. That, I mean, with 25 years as a young man, even a student, like, he did huge works. I mean, like the one which I stand in front of. That's for an artist that is really young, not, well, younger than 30. And that's really interesting, and it's very telling about the impact and about the importance of movement in the post-war avant-garde in Europe. As I've been working for a very long time for my PhD, for several shows on the work of Piero Manzoni, I was very touched today to see, or maybe to understand for the first time, that maybe one really special aspect about Pier Paolo Calzolari's work is that in a way you feel that he's close to a certain Italian context of Manzoni, Burri, Fontana, and there is maybe something like a Italianità, like an Italian background or common basement of their work. But at the same time, you feel how freely he developed his own language and how special his development is in the last 30, 40 years. And that's something you see here in the showrooms in really an exquisite way.
First time I encountered Pier Paolo's work was in New York in 2012 at the exhibition between Marianne Boesky Gallery and Pace Gallery, where they blew out the walls just so that they could have all that extra space to exhibit his work. And I had never seen anything like it. I thought it was so magical and mystical and just sublimely beautiful. My first impression after visiting the Fondazione is how special and important it is to get this immersive experience of being in these spaces and seeing his career unfold throughout all these works. And again, the progression, the imagination, and the ideas, and also how connected he feels to his pieces in this area, and his personality is so quiet and poetic, just like his pieces. So I feel like it's a special opportunity to understand his work in a new way. I absolutely think that visiting the foundation is essential and to understanding Pier Paolo's work. You have to be able to walk around it, to go up close, to see again the works, not 5 different works, but be able to see all these different pieces in these 3 different buildings and see how they interplay with each other. Absolutely essential. I think I was not, before I came here today, I think I was not aware of the importance of the text and the writing, and I like the way it appeared in various mediums and pieces too.
I first encountered Pier Paolo's work as an art student in the late 70s and early 80s at a small college in Ohio in the United States where Dennis Oppenheim had escaped from the New York art world and came to be with us and make a major piece. We both were obsessed with Pier Paolo's work, and we looked at books, but I had not seen anything in person at that time. Fast forward to 2010, and I encountered a work in the collection of Nancy Olnick and Giorgio Spanu in New York State, and other exhibitions after that. And it was extremely moving after knowing the work from books and publications to finally see the work realized in person. My first impression after visiting the Fondazione is I'm overwhelmed, and I feel like I've been in an alchemical dream because to see so much work that deals with the elements and to visit it in person, it's not easy for Americans to see the work in the States, and so I appreciate very much the experience of being here. I think it's just a little bit about phenomenology, how you feel in the presence of this work, how elemental it is to be with salt and frost and fire and these elements. I can taste them, and I don't ever want to get rid of that taste. I think the works that are behind me were most compelling because I don't understand how they were made, and so that's a form of alchemy, a form of magic that I appreciate, even trying to understand some of his work and his processes. So I absolutely feel that visiting the Fondazione is moving and important. I was the director of Dia Beacon, the museum of the Dia Art Foundation, and I understand the importance of long-term presence for artists starting from the period when Pier Paolo began to work. And it's a very moving experience, and I think it's important to see an artist's work in total.